For some context, this happened last year sometime in September during the global pandemic. Now, I was home alone with my brother as my mom was out of town for at least a few days just to get the last bit of stuff that we left behind, or aka just to do some stuff. Now, since this happened last year during the pandemic, my brother was at school and I was basically home alone. I was doing my usual thing, checking up online on YouTube and etc. I, however, then all of a sudden heard tapping coming from my bedroom window. It sounded as if someone was throwing rocks on it. I thought that it might have been maybe just some bugs flying around that area of my house, as I sometimes do hear bugs tap on the glass. Sometimes a bird might do it once in a while, but that was very rare to happen. I just ignored it and continued doing what I usually do, but it wasn't until at nighttime when something starts to get really messed up. I was sleeping in my bedroom as my brother had already gone to sleep. Since I didn't have anything to do with my dog since he was with my mom, I ended up falling asleep, playing on my phone for the next little while before I shut it off for the night and ended up going to sleep. I think maybe an hour later, I heard the tapping noise again from my window, and I thought that maybe something was throwing something at it. I got my flashlight and looked, but I couldn't see anybody. I know bugs weren't out at this time, with the exception of some mosquitoes. So I decided maybe there was somebody out there throwing rocks at my house. Why would that be the case? I have no idea. I stepped out of my house and walked towards the backyard. There's not really any fencing or back doors, so you would have to go through the front door to go around to the back or take the basement door. I didn't want to take the basement door as I don't really use the basement door very much, but when I got my flashlight and walked out, I couldn't see any the figure or anything. I called out if anyone was out there, but when I did, I looked up to see that there was a shadowy figure who was standing on the other side of the fence near the school. I live not far from the school, so it is quite possible to know where I am. Not saying the address of where I live for obvious reasons, but this figure stood about maybe 6 or 7 feet tall. And since I couldn't describe any features since it didn't have any, it then took off running and running out of sight. I didn't even know what it was and figured that maybe it might have been the one throwing the rocks at my window. I had no idea. I went back in the house and stayed inside for the remainder of the night. I nearly fell asleep within an hour, where after being so paranoid, thinking it might come back. I didn't even bother to tell anybody about this story, seeing that they probably would most likely not believe me. I still get chills to this day just thinking about it. This happened some time ago to my mom one Christmas Eve when my dad took my brother and I to see Santa at a mall. Now, this was back before my parents split, which they did for reasons I won't go into. My mom was wrapping up gifts for Christmas Day as it was the next day, and Christmas was one of the times my dad would spend time with me and my brother. Now, as my mom was wrapping up gifts, she was playing some Christmas music on the radio. I think this might have took place in 2016, but I don't honestly remember. It was around that year, possibly. So as my mom was wrapping gifts, she felt all of a sudden some cold air in the room. But the window was closed and the AC wasn't on, so there was no way that she could feel the cold. She looked and realized that the heat was on, thought that maybe the power went out and the heat was turned off, or maybe the heat might have been on a timer. My mom even looked, but the heat was on, so there shouldn't be any reason for my mom to be cold. She ended up thinking that maybe she might have been imagining things as usual, so she went back to wrapping gifts. A few seconds later, Mom started to hear whispers of some sort of voice. It sounded like a ghostly whisper. My mom looked over, but couldn't find any source of it. It started saying something along the lines of, "You don't belong here." It was in a raspy voice and it sounded really weird. So my mom looked outside but couldn't see if there was anybody outside pulling a prank on her. My mom just ignored it and continued wrapping gifts. But as she was wrapping gifts, however, she looked outside again and saw that there was this figure of a woman. She looked to maybe 15 years old or something. So my mom went downstairs to find out how she actually got over there. Thinking that she might have been lost, she opened the back door, but the girl was not there anymore. Confused as my mom was, she heard the girl running towards the back gate, which my mom looked. There was this creepy woman. Now she was 15 or 16, had the craziest smile. My mom didn't even know what to do. She texted my dad, and my dad told her to call the cops. So, with that said, my mom did that and called the cops, but when the cops arrived, they couldn't find any source of it. So they said to them just to call back maybe if they see anything. So they left. My mom was quite frustrated at this point, not knowing what the hell just happened or even what to do. My mom was just back to wrapping gifts. It wasn't until sometime maybe around midnight when my brother and I were asleep that something like that happened again. But my mom had no idea what it actually was, so she just ignored it. Fast forward to maybe 2018, when my brother and my dad and I have gone to go see Santa at the mall again. My mom was wrapping presents home alone yet again when my dog started barking at something. He was barking at the closet, and my mom ended up looking out in the closet and see that there was this deranged woman again that she saw a few years back. This woman actually screamed and then faded into thin air. My mom ended up telling this story to us, and I honestly have no idea what it was. It might have been paranormal she might have experienced while we were out, but still to this day, I still don't know what to think of it. It still haunts me to this day, and it still confuses my mom and I to this day. I still don't know what it actually was, but I had a feeling it probably wasn't good. This actually happened to one of my friends named Alex, and he was 14 sometime in 2013. Alec was Alex, as we all call him. Alec was just his nickname, as some people called him that at the school. Alex was living in Ontario with me and a couple of my friends, and he was a pretty smart student. He was one of the nerds that people like to make fun of at school, but Alex didn't really mind. Now, his older brother, which name is Darren, was 18, so Darren worked at Walmart most of the time, so he was rarely home. While both of his parents worked at different jobs, Alex was most likely home alone most of the time. When Alex was home alone after school, he would usually play video games, watch TV, or even go online for stuff. He didn't really mind it at all. Being home alone was something he'd been used to ever since he was 13, and ever since his brother was left home alone. Now, at the time of this story, this happened sometime in 2013 or 14. Can't really remember what year, but it was around the time. Now, when Alex got home from school one day, he ended up going to his bedroom where he got started on a bit of homework, then decided to take a break to play some video games. As he was playing some video games, he heard what seemed to be the door opening. Alex thought that maybe his brother was home, so he went downstairs to see. But when he got downstairs, the front door was left open. and Alex got really nervous at this point. There was no sound of his mom or dad or even his brother. Alex got really nervous, so looked into the living room. There was a man facing behind him who seemed to have a large knife. He seemed about 6 foot tall, and he looked like a homeless guy. Alex immediately slowly walked back upstairs, and since he knew about what the situation is, he went to his dad's bedroom and found his dad's gun. He went inside his bedroom with the gun and locked the door and waited for a while. He heard some footsteps with a man shouting, "Where are you?" over and over again. It sounded like he was trashing the place, so Alex immediately dialed 911 and called the cops about it. Alex was on the phone with the operator for a while when whoever the man was climbs up the stairs, looked into the bathroom, room, Alex's brother's bedroom, his bedroom, and immediately he went towards the parents' bedroom and began to pound on the door loudly. Just as Alex thought he was finished, he was hidden well in the closet. So when he started whimpering, he's coming inside the house in the bedroom, Alex said. But as Alex thought that he was done for, police sirens could be heard in the distance, and the man said, "Ah, shit." Then he ran down the stairs, and as soon as he went downstairs, the police knocked on the parents' bedroom door, which Alex ended up opening, and the police said that they had caught the man just as he was about to make his escape. Alex was asked questions like if he knew this man or not, and Alex shook his head no. Eventually, his parents were forewarned and aware about this by the police, so they ended up coming home as soon as possible, which the police stayed for about an hour talking to them. Apparently, what Alex didn't find out or know earlier was that this man had been charged for murdering during teenagers, and he even took advantage of a woman sometime 2 years back. And at that time, he had also have been charged with assault as well as breaking entry and even stealing items from people. This man was mentally insane, and he was sent back to the mental institution. He somehow escaped, but we still don't know to this day if that man actually found his way out of there at the time. Alex still gets chills to this day when he thinks about this story, and this is why he's more careful when it comes to having doors unlocked. The door wasn't unlocked when Alex got home. The man somehow found a key and he somehow got into the house, which that's what everyone believed into that. And as of this man was never been spoken of again.